challenge of our time, right? Is how to like deal with these and negotiate and deconstruct a lot of these issues. And you know, this is, we just live in these historical times that this is our challenge. That in the minds of most people is what's bubbling up. So, does that help answer your question?
I just said that, as I mentioned, I have an opinion on this matter. I know how you look at it. Of course, I'm not a professor, but that's how I feel about the whole matter. I think this problem will take generations to solve it, if it can be solved. And I think it can be done through education. I think that's the only way I feel it can be done. On both sides, whether you're Muslims, you're Christians, Americans, or but it's through the education, which will take time.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. No, this is a long-term approach, right? And you find that. I mean, I think that there's, you know, anecdotally, you find that today's millennial generation, at least in the States, sees the world in a different way in terms of complexity, nuance than our previous generation did, that looked at the world between, you know, the us and the them, people that came of age in the Cold War, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, you do find that. But it's flip side. I mean, that's one of the problems of living around academics all the time. Is there's always a rebuttal to everything, right? Today's many of today's young people end up being more kind of inward looking, and the world has become more globalized. And as they're more interconnected with Twitter and Facebook with the rest of the world, they're also at the same time paradoxically more obsessed with their own lives, right? And you know, become more inward focused and not as concerned, you know, from previous generations. But
final,
yes, final thought, and then we'll walk over to lunch.
This also links to what we're discussing, and we have discussed earlier in other institutions, like the method of it, and among ourselves. It's a messaging, you know.
Yes.
It's clearly articulated by the leaders here in America, from the president to whoever, that this is not a war against Islam, this is a war against terrorism,
yes,
over and over again. But I'm not sure how far it's fought.
Yes.
Now, it is, I think, more illustrated by what's the Cordoba thing that we are going tomorrow.
Yes.
Maybe just your final thoughts about that. That, all right, you have some kind of a community center being 2 or 3 blocks away from ground zero.
Yes.
But my point is, your messaging was genuine. It doesn't matter if it's next to ground zero, because this is about Islam or community center. So why there should be such strong reaction, and of course understandable, but it doesn't tally with the messaging.
Yes.
You know, and the people who are against it are also the people who are throwing this message that it's not against Islam.
Yep.
So that confuses me.
Yes.
Even Bush, who gave a very eloquent speech that Muslims have the right, this is their constitution, this and that. But I think 2 days later he just said, oh, this is just my opinion, we are not saying anything. But you know, he distanced himself because there was tremendous backlash that he was afraid that there would be some political fallout from it. So maybe you could just, as a last thing before we
no, sure, that's a great question. I just came back from a conference that actually we went to a lot of sessions about this, and I'll try to keep it brief, because is that really, if you boil it all down, it's that Islam in America doesn't have a narrative that is, you know, is that you can reach the masses with, that the masses see, that they can connect with, that, you know, that really hits home for them. It's all about the narrative and how you present it, right? A lot of that is being savvy with understanding how you produce this narrative, how you transmit this narrative. I think that some people do it well in our community, some people don't do it well. But now we're talking at national level, right? How do you get that narrative out? The Cordoba House, you know, the Part 51 thing was, actually, I'm glad that you brought it up, is that was like such an enormous blunder to see that the narrative was not put together and it didn't have traction, as we call it, from getting it out there. The other thing that I will say, and this will have to be hopefully continued over lunch or something like that, is part of this is, I really mean this, is that there is a level of dubiousness, of real, you know, as the kids say, like, it's shady out there.
Yeah.
It's very true that there are people that, you know, the easiest thing to say is like, look, I'm not Islamophobic. Not all Muslims are bad. Some Muslims are good. But it's, you know, a lot of these Muslims out there are dangerous ones. And so this is a whole other academic argument, is that, and literally, I just came back from a conference last week, and I'm still thinking through this as well. And one of my friends, who was actually a presenter, who's here at Yale, who's a wonderful academic, really made me think about this because I do a lot of work on Islamophobia and I talk to a lot of communities about Islamophobia. And she actually pushed me on this. She said, don't use the term Islamophobia. And this was her nuanced answer. I'll try to do it justice. She said, look, what has happened is Bill O'Reilly, Robert Spencer, Daniel Pipes, they now joke about Islamophobia because Islamophobia to them is like, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, you poor little Muslims. Like, I'm sorry if the Danish cartoonist hurt your feelings. I'm sorry if the Quran burning in Florida hurt your feelings. Because to them it's like, I mean, what's the big deal after all, right? Because them, Islamophobia is like homophobia. Deep down, they're very anti-gay. They're very against, homosexuality and a lot of gay rights issues. And so they make fun of homophobia and say, well, I don't mean to hurt gay people's or homosexuals' feelings, right? To them, it's become equated and it's lost all valence or potency, right? But, so what I'm trying to say is this, is if you call Daniel Pipes or Robert Spencer an Islamophobe, and be like, I'm not Islamophobe. I know Muslims. Some Muslims are good people, right? That's their cop-out to it. Whereas deep down, they could care less about Islam. In fact, they could hate Islam. But if you call them a racist, and you publicly challenge them, because racism in America still has a punch to it. If you call someone a racist, you challenge and call it. Then they get defensive. No. You're not understanding what I'm saying. And then you can force them to say, be very clear. What are you saying? What are you against? And what are you for? Whereas they get very fast with Islamophobia and some Muslims are okay, several Muslims that drink beer and that eat ham sandwiches and want to go watch football with me. They're the okay type of Muslims. I'm not worried about them. You pray, then you're an Islamist, right? Versus if you challenge, say, look, deep down, you still are racially bigoted, prejudiced Muslims. Now I'm going to challenge you to come back with an articulate response on how you really feel about Islam. That's something that now, which in my mind connects to this idea that Muslims have been racialized in the mindset of that population, and that's the challenge we go through.
I would like to say that I hope you rethink that.
Okay.
Because it's never good to call people that.
And call them a bigot. Then they get defensive. They're like, no. You're not understanding what I'm saying. And then you can force them and say, be very clear. What are you saying? What are you against? And what are you for? Whereas they play very loose and fast with Islamophobia. And, some Muslims are okay. The type of Muslims that drink beer and that eat ham sandwiches and, want to go watch football with me. They're the okay type of Muslims. I'm not worried about them. But if you pray, then you're an Islamist, right? Versus if you challenge them and say, look, deep down, you still are racially bigoted and prejudiced against Muslims. Now I'm going to challenge you, and you need to come back with an articulate response on how do you really feel about Islam? That's something that I've been thinking through now, which in my mind connects to this idea that Muslims have been racialized in the mindset of much of that population. And that's the challenge we need to go through. Do you have something on that?
Okay.
I would like to just say that I hope you rethink that.
Okay.
Because it's never good to call people names.
No, of course not. No.
Then you are reducing your
Yes.
way to the same. It's just
No, I actually.
a big mistake.
No, I
to
agree
start
with you.
challenging, but you're a racist.
No, you're right. It came in the context.
Sorry, I don't like to.
No. I appreciate you bringing that up. It came in the context of an academic conversation on saying that race theory and the way America deals with race and race issues, it's still, for lack of a better term, I'm using my vernacular here, packs a different punch than is that if you
But
can.
Your aim should not be to punch.
No, I don't mean
Your
by.
aim should be to educate and explain.
No.
And elegant.
Yes. Well, I think.
Sorry.
No, I appreciate that. What I would say is I think that, one, by all means, I'm totally for, civil discourse, disagree to disagree, agree to disagree. We have congenial conversations and diplomatic conversations. At the same time, I've seen enough in my life so far that there are some very, very evil intentioned bigots out there. And I'll name them, people like Pam. My life so far, that there are some very, very evil intentioned bigots out there. And I'll name them, people like Pamela Geller, people like Robert Spencer, people like Daniel Pipes, that if you go through their track record of what they've said publicly, the stances they've taken is that they have a deep animosity for Islam, to the point that it's actually dangerous for the Muslim community. Those are people that, it's all nice to be fine and dandy to polite with Bill O'Reilly on his talk show, but they also need to be challenged in public forums to say that what you're doing actually is very dangerous. And I'll call out Pamela Geller, and you can, all of this is now, you know, you can Google this because there's a whole narrative that's been written. Pamela Geller was one of the 2 or 3 people who single-handedly hijacked the entire Park 51. And you're more than welcome to talk to the Cordoba House people about her because she's infamous now. The New York Times has been written about her. There's this thing called Acts for Saving America. And these are people that on the record have gone out to say that Islam does not belong in this country. Muslims don't belong in here. Islam is an evil, dangerous cult, and it has to be literally expunged. And that is very dangerous language because when I look at the levels of evangelical friends that I have, that the churches that some of them go to, and that they say the number of hits that these people get on their websites from that community, what worries me is that education or miseducation is gaining traction with them. So you've got to cut that off.
Yeah, I know, forgive me, but
Mhm.
I don't think that's the way to cut it off.
Mhm.
One way to cut it off is to say, we're sorry if Christian churches were destroyed in Egypt.
Sure.
And we're very sorry. That's
Sure.
not us.
Mhm.
American Muslims are not included in that.
No, no.
They are far greater bridge building.
Sure, no, you're right. And I mean, for the record, I want to give credit to ISNA because you're going to meet Dr. Matson, and with this, literally, we'll walk over. ISNA is a fantastic organization.
Us,
Mhm.
American Muslims, are not included in that.
No, no.
They are far greater bridge building.
Sure, no, you're right. And I mean, for the record, I want to give credit to ISNA because you're going to meet Dr. Matson, and with this, literally, we'll walk over. ISNA is a fantastic organization. Dr. Matson and all of her team have been doing amazing work. You know, when the churches were destroyed in Pakistan because of some sectarian violence, there, ISNA raised thousands of dollars, and I think rebuilt 2 of the churches. And actually flew over there, you know, with the interfaith team and did the rebuilding. And it's things like that that I don't think get playtime. And I agree with you. When I know of these things, I know the people that do them, so I publicize them. But what cuts deep to me as a person is that, you know, the same people in front of a public audience on national television, someone like a Pamela Geller, someone like a Robert Spencer, would completely discount that and say that that's really
But
Muslims
they're not,
doing
they're
taqiyya.
not important.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's
Well, they are important in that they've gotten important. You know, they've reported to the Council on Foreign Relations.
Can I just say
Thank you.
something?
Yes.
I have 2 children in public schools, and I come from Europe, from Slovakia, right? Over there, we mostly have gypsies. We don't have as many Muslims as so. It is very, I would say, Slovakia is more racist than here in America. So here in public schools, what they're trying to teach children are respect. Respect others, other culture, other people, their differences, and that's how you get along. So finally, you know, here I see there's more respect in like starting from the public schools. Then you know, so children are more exposed to differences in culture, in religion, and in you know, how everybody looks, and so they are used to differences, and they are taught respect.
Yeah, that's
So
a
so
very
that, that's
good way.
yeah that's the how the public schools are teaching children here,
That's
and this is the best way to get over differences by respect.
Absolutely right.
Right.
Thank you.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you for
I think
having
moving on.
our good conversation with Brother Umar here on behalf of the delegates from Singapore.
Mhm.
We thank you
Thank
for
you.
giving your insight of what we are going through and what things are being done to improve relations between Muslims and non-Muslims.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Imam, the chaplain's office.
Yes.
It's organized. This is the chaplain's office,
Yes.
right? So you have the pastor, Protestant pastor, you said, and a Buddhist chaplain as well.
Mhm.
Are they all here today?
So we actually have, this is University Chaplain Sharon Kugler right here. She's the University
Oh,
Chaplain.
wonderful.
Very glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If just allow me just a few seconds. This is a donation we'd like to make to the chaplain's office. You know, you do Christmas gathering, you do Thanksgiving, you do Deepavali, you do Iftar.
Yes.
This is a very small contribution from us.
Thank
We
you.
want
that's
an
lovely.
Thank you
interfaith,
very much.
you know, to
Thank you
support
so
the
much.
interfaith work that Yale University does.
Thank you.
Oh, that's,
It's not a very nice envelope, but
this is
but we are so
absolutely,
struck by the things that you do.
thank you so much. This
Thank you
is
so
not,
much.
not
Yeah.
expected and
Yeah.
we appreciate it. We're put it to good use, but we're just so thrilled you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's
Open up, open up,
Thank
open
you.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Can we have a group photograph for the
Where's
process?
Boleh ambil.